Hello, everybody, and welcome to a little special episode where we will be playing tabs, but we're going to be doing something a little different instead of just playing the game. Tabs has been out for a while, and it's a game that has a lot of creative freedom to it. It's always been a personal favorite of mine. And back when I was like 14, 15, 16, I used to write a lot of stories, and to visualize the characters, I would put them in tabs as their own factions and whatever and whatnot. Since then, a lot of those stories have been completely lost to history on like old phones of mine that don't work anymore, along with like concept arts, the stories themselves, and the only ones that are really left are the ones that were on my Xbox on tabs. So a little bit ago, I went through and I took pictures of each of the factions and each of the characters that are a part of the factions. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to lay out a random wheel generator. The random wheel will pick one of the stories. I will then try to recount the story while recreating the units in full released tabs. So yeah, I know that was a handful, but I hope you get it. So let's actually start by whipping out our wheel generator. Okay, we got it up here. Where is my mouse? My mouse is gone. My mouse has left the building. Why is my mouse gone? Hold on a second. Okay, seriously, where is my mouse? I can't even... Okay. So we're here. Where is my mouse? Okay, and into the wheel after those technical difficulties. So, I think in total, I spent around like 3 hours taking pictures of, I think, over 200 units for tabs. So this is, yeah, this will be something. So we're going to roll this. It's going to pick a story, and I'm just going to try and recount it the best I can, considering this was from like, each of these was from like 4 years ago. Some of them newer, some of them older, give or take 4 years ago. So let's spin the wheel and see what we get here. What are we starting with? Please don't be a long one. I don't want to do one of the ones with like... Oh. Shit. Okay. So, we will be going with a broken nation to start. It's actually... That's an interesting one because Broken Nation actually never was made in tabs. I actually made it. It's probably my newest one of all of these that I made around when I got my PC here. So I actually made it in People Playground, not in tabs. So this should be interesting. So the whole premise of this story was it started out as like just me messing around, and it turned into a bit of a story. So let's go into make a unit. So there's one really important character. So this one went in pretty big chapters. The first chapter was following a guy that simply just went by the name the hunter. The thing that was most noteworthy with this character was his mask. He had a mask. And I actually, before I get into this, I'm actually going to go into People Playground just to give myself a reference to work with real quick, and then we'll be back. Okay, so here we are in People Playground. This is our list of characters we're going down. This is like their casual wear, and this is their like their like actual equipment, their gear that they wear. So our first character we're going with is the hunter, and that's him right here. So what we're going with, we need a mask, probably some basic clothes, and he has a revolver. That's really just our big detail we need to focus on with him. So let's get back into tabs. Okay, so now we're back in tabs, and now I also took a picture, so I do have a reference image. The hardest part of this is we're taking a 2D character and making them, you know, into a 3D character, but luckily tabs should handle that just fine. So first we need a mask. I'm thinking for our mask we do, there's actually two I might look at. There's a ballistics mask. I'm not gonna do these masks. There's a ballistics mask and there's a hockey mask. Actually, I think, let's just see. Yeah, so there's a hockey mask and a face mask. I'm thinking we go with the face mask for this. And his face mask was black, like completely matte black. Next thing was his hood. That's the next big detail to pay attention to, so let's get a hood. Spooky hood, that's an alright one. Archer, nah, I don't like the knight hood. I kinda like the way it sits on his head and how it's kind of underneath the straps to the mask. I think I'm going with the knight hood. And the knight hood was kind of, it was still brown, but it was kind of like a bandagey color. Like kind of like that. And that is because, well, I literally made it using bandages. How about we do, because this is where I get a good bit of creative liberty for making these. We'll go with that brown. Yeah, I'm all right with that. Now, the next bit of this, we need something that a bounty hunter would wear. So maybe like, if I remember correctly, his whole thing was almost like a Western style bounty hunter. That's kind of the thing I went for when making the character. Oh, I wonder where the spooky hood wasn't there. What does it matter? I think a jacket of some type would be the best. We pick out a jacket, have a shirt under it. And yeah. There's probably not going to be anything too special with creating the character, so we'll just see you when it's done. Okay, so character design is done. Not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say I'm the most proud of it, but this actually isn't the only design of this character we're gonna do. This is only the starting design. There actually is a second one, which is where we'll get more into the story of how the first chapter of this went. So first thing, the hunter. Okay, yeah, it's working about the way I was expecting it to. Okay, yeah, so I think stats are all good. There was nothing really special about him at the start of the game. He was just kind of a serial killer bounty hunter. I'm not sure what I think about the brown. I kind of want to go to grayscale, so hold on a minute. I think we're gonna do that. We're gonna change this back to grayscale colors. Yeah, we're gonna go with like that. Hold on, I'll be back. Okay, there we go. So that gives more like ghost vibes, which was a lot more true to what the character was. So now we can call it on our first character, the hunter. And we'll just make his price a multiple of 5 to make this a lot less annoying. Okay. So now to make a faction. So I think for right now, we're not going to go through all of them. I'm definitely going to do a part 2 where we go through these. I just don't have a ton of time right now. Shit, I might just cut to like a second part of this video, just make it one long video, but multiple recording sessions, who knows. But to start out, we got pretty good here. So faction emblem. What am I thinking for an emblem? Honestly, I think we'll do this just because there's a broken Natan Levy. Okay, a broken nation, and we have our first character added to it, which is the hunter. So now let's get into our second character for the intro of this. So our next character will be a character who plays a lot bigger of a role moving forward throughout the story. His name is Ratchet. Right, okay, it's all coming back to me little by little. The Ratchet, That's how his name was spelled. And he was... if I remember correctly, he was found by the hunter. He got shot, and the hunter saved his life, and that's what kind of sparked off the big intro to our story here. So we're going to make Ratchet to the best of our abilities here, and yeah, see y'all when I'm done. So yeah, and here we have Ratchet completed. So I definitely want to go back into People Playground because actually there were a ton of models in there that weren't in that little display that I definitely want to go back and revisit, but to get a better idea of some of these characters, but because I know there are several that aren't there. But this is, I'd say this is pretty good for our intro for Ratchet and the Hunter. So originally, actually, he had a revolver just like the Hunter, but smaller one. So not, you know, I believe the whole thing was the Hunter had like had either a 450 or 500 Magnum, and Ratchet had more like a 357. What's up, everybody? So, excuse me. So, we're back, and we're gonna be jumping back into this little challenge here. And I actually realized while I was away, I actually messed up and confused our character Ratchet here. Let me get to him. God. I literally just ate a sub and now I'm gassy for some reason. Ratchet, I actually confused him for someone else. Luckily, I didn't confuse him that badly. I really just got his weapon wrong. I accidentally got his head thing right, which was completely intentional. You know what? I knew exactly what character I was working on. So yeah, he had a flintlock, a scrap flintlock that he built. And the other thing I remembered, or that I wanted to do differently, that I was doing a really poor job of explaining these stories. So let's actually start out at the beginning. So we're going to take the Hunter here, and I'm actually going to make a different model of him because this wasn't actually his starting model. Excuse me. He actually didn't start out with the mask. Didn't start out with that either. Probably will start out with something long sleeve. So hold on, I'm gonna switch this up real quick and then I'll be back. Okay, so yeah, this'll do. We'll just name him Part 1. So, the way the story went, and the whole reason why I'm going through this effort to make this change, is the way the story begins is it starts, you know, following this hitman-like character who then ends up getting in a little over his head and ends up getting shot. He ends up getting wounded during his mission, and his target that he was after was a doctor or scientist who I'm probably actually going to make here as our next character, just to give a visual as to who these characters were. But basically, his target, this doctor, saw it as a perfect opportunity to use him as a test subject. And so through some very definitely safe procedures, he ended up creating this weird serum, which will be a big part of really the whole rest of this story, that had a regenerative property that literally just sealed the gunshot wounds and healed him while also increasing his bone density and among other things, basically like a super soldier serum. So basically he gets up from near death after being this guy's dummy and test subject for whatever he saw fit. And then he got up and absolutely blasted a hole through his head. And that's kind of how it started. After that, he was presumed dead, and the target was confirmed dead. So he disappeared and then came back with this mask, and he was almost like a ghost. He would hit and then he'd be gone, and then he'd hit somewhere else belonging to this government agency, and then he'd disappear again. So it was like he's a big vigilante type character. And then he ends up finding a guy who was being hunted by the very people he was hunting. So after this guy gets shot, he rescues him, and he uses his own homemade version of this serum that made him basically a super soldier, and ended up saving his life. And so that is how the hunter ends up meeting Ratchet. Let me get some hair on this guy real quick, and then we'll continue telling the story a bit. Yeah, let's do like this hairstyle. Why not? We'll keep it blonde too. Yeah, this is our our scientist. This is our doctor here. Here's what we'll just name him Target 1. Because it's really all he was. He didn't play a bigger role besides, well, inventing the literal thing that caused this entire story to go on the way it did. But basically the hunter, from that point on, after killing the doctor, was a vigilante. He was a rebel against this private agency. I know I said government agency. It was a private agency. I don't remember the name of it, but I do remember it was a privately owned agency that was trying to get in close with the government to get government funding so that they could do, you know, go on with their evil plans of overthrowing the government and whatnot. So, yeah, this is... I really wish I had the original source material to refer back to as to what this was. I genuinely am going off of memory just by seeing these characters and trying to piece it back together as I knew it, which is kind of the fun of this little mini-series. But next we get, well, actually, no, we should probably finish off our first little act here. Our first act of this, I'd say, ended when the hunter rescues Ratchet. They get cornered in a building by agents of this, you know, private company and whatnot. They get pinned in a building, and the building ends up getting burnt down and just collapsing on their heads. Ratchet survives mostly unharmed because he was hooked up by like an IV pump to this large tank of this homemade serum. And the tank, he hid near the tank, so the tank stopped the wreckage from stopped the building from collapsing on his head, and he escaped pretty much just burnt, mostly unscathed. The hunter, on the other hand, had a roof just collapse right down on him, but he still ended up living because, you know, story reasons. No, I think he ended up living because he had a small vial of this serum on him. And then the next part ended up revealing that he was making this makeshift serum because throughout his little his time as a test subject, it somehow altered his heart, so his heart was actually developing and pumping out this serum as like an altered form of blood. So he almost needed to keep a constant stock of it, otherwise he would slowly die without it. Now, I think that motive isn't revealed till like a little later in the story. I think around when he dies. But that is like kind of his big thing. So after this big event, the hunter ends up parting ways, being presumed dead, and Ratchet goes on to actually start an underground rebellion, which is where we're going to get into this next part. So first thing, we're going to make the agents, and then I'll continue breaking down the story once we're done with that. So, yeah, we have our agent here. And one thing you're probably noticing from looking at them, they just kind of look like a security guard. And that was kind of what this company was doing throughout the entirety of the story. The whole thing is, it was all under the radar operations, just acting as a independent defense and PMC organization. A lot of their research wasn't actually like figured out until way later into the story. And so this is really like the first chapter this is about all it was. This started out as like something really small, and then it evolved into something bigger as like I got more bored and felt like writing further into it. This is probably my longest of all of them. So I'm probably just going to leave it here at covering chapter 1, and we're going to go roll the wheel again. And then we'll keep this on the wheel, and if we land on it again, we'll do chapter 2, and so on. So, yeah, but that is A Broken Nation. There's also something else I want to do later on, but I want to make the units first before we do my other idea. So, let's hit the wheel. Okay, so here we're on the wheel. So there's a really weird glitch with OBS for some reason where if I switch between the game and this tab, my mouse will just disappear off the screen. So I have to close out OBS, then reopen OBS. So this is definitely going to be annoying if I have to keep doing this, but that's besides the point. Let's hit the wheel again. Alrighty. What do we gotta land on? Another long one. Symbiosis it is. This one, if you can't tell by the name, it's heavily Venom inspired. And it's also one of my longer stories, so I was hoping to get a short one, but here we are. So let's do this one real quick. Just see how quickly I can go through it. This at least was one that was made in tabs, so I have a picture of the tabs unit from back when tabs unit creator was in the beta, or at least in its early stages. Not quite, it was past beta, but it wasn't quite full release yet. So let's get into making this, shall we? Good God, this one's gonna take forever. Okay, so I'm back and we're 2 units in, actually. Hold on. Okay, so we're 2 units in. So we made our main character so far, and we are currently making our base symbiote, which is pretty big part of this entire design. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too happy with the way that did not used to clip like that in the older version of tabs, so I'm honestly very disappointed to be seeing that that's the case now. I don't know how scaling gets that messed up. But it did somehow. Yeah, I don't like that that's a thing. Can I maybe fix that? See if we can get a shirt that'll cover it like that. Okay, so boom. No more clipping through. We can remove that because this shirt should cover that now. Good. Now I think only the legs will clip through. Yeah, only the legs will clip through now, which is good. Okay, so this is our base symbiote. I believe our big thing was size. Slightly faster. And symbiote. So the whole point of the symbiosis story follows a character named Ryan, who at the start has unknown motives, but what's very clear is that he is breaking into some kind of facility that has been shut down and abandoned. It's eventually revealed that he is searching for his brother, and that is why he's breaking in here. His brother must have, and I completely forget why he went in. A lot of those details have completely been lost on me over the past several years. But he breaks in looking for his brother who went missing there. So he goes in, and from the outside it looks all right. You know, just looks like he's breaking into some facility that he probably shouldn't be breaking into, but hey, semantics. So he breaks in, and only to find out that the place has a entire complex built underneath it. This giant complex that I would compare visually, if you're looking for like a visual reference, to like the prison that Cade 6 died in Destiny 2 in Forsaken. Something like that, like this huge hole in the ground, this massive just spiral, and it's just surrounded by a huge complex going all the way down, and then there's a bridge to this center area that has a reactor that is powering the whole thing, and it's a giant tube going the whole way up. So think of it like that elevator that was in that prison that Cade 6 died in. Make that the tube of a generator going up through, and then at the top sending wires out and around to power everything. So Ryan goes in unsuspecting, and it's not until he finds the complex underneath that he actually realizes what he just walked into. It's throughout this a bunch of characters are introduced. One in particular is going to be our next one we make. But you have a common enemy throughout the whole thing, which is a symbiote by the name of Omega, which is just this massive hulking monster, which I'm sure we'll get around to making. But along with that, we have a lot of main characters to cover. Those will be the ones we'll make, and we'll do the same thing where we'll keep this on the wheel because this is a big one. So if I spin to it again, we'll do it again and continue on building it. Symbiosis. So we have Ryan and the symbiote. So our next character we'll make will be our other main character. One that yeah, I'll make him first, then we'll get back to it. Okay? Okay, so here we have Violet. So Violet is a symbiote, as you can see, but where she becomes a big changer in the story is she's sentient. She is intelligent, she has a mind of her own, and along with that, has access to the memories of the host she possesses, which actually causes her to have character development throughout the story, making her join up with Ryan and become a very integral part of the whole story. Now we have one more character we're gonna make, and then we'll roll the wheel again, and once we roll the wheel again, then that will be it for this episode. And where is he? Bear with me for a second here. Okay, so I have the image of him up. This shouldn't take too long. So, let's make him, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we have Agent Grant. Agent Grant is he's the villain of this story, which is crazy to say considering, we're talking about the symbiotes. Another thing I want to make clear too is these symbiotes aren't the same as like the Marvel symbiotes. These are all artificially created. They were made in a lab. They're not like alien creatures. And so in this, Ryan breaks in as Grant is going in that same night to clear out and kill everything in the lab. So at first he kind of appears as a good guy, like, okay, we'll help you, we'll get you out of here. And then once Ryan ends up meeting Violet and ends up learning differently and learning the motives behind what they're doing, sides kind of flip and Grant kind of turns into this bad guy in the eyes of the main character. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting one of the stories. All of these are interesting. I mean, they were made in the brain of a 15-year-old, so I'm amazed I still even remember half of them. But that's all I'm gonna do for this episode. I have been at this for hours today, so we're gonna leave it there. If you enjoyed, thank you for watching. I'm definitely gonna do another episode of this. It's definitely interesting. I like revisiting my past in this way. It's cool. So yeah, if you want to see more, let me know. So thank you, and I'll see you all in the next video.